A man is shouting in a language no one understands. He's tall, powerful, and looks like he could buy the entire New York City block. But in the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, the staff just thinks he's crazy. The manager is about to call security. But then, a waitress, her apron stained and her eyes tired, steps forward. She answers him in flawless German. The entire restaurant freezes. What he's saying isn't an order. It's a warning. And she's the only one who heard it. The crystal glasses at Aurelia, the most obscenely expensive restaurant in Manhattan, were designed to chime, not shatter. Yet, the sound of the front door slamming open was a crash, a violation of the hushed, velvety atmosphere. Elise Hayes flinched, her hand jerking, sending a single drop of ruby-red Cabernet onto the pristine white tablecloth of Table 7. "Damn it," she muttered, dabbing at it with a napkin, her heart pounding. A stain like that could cost her the shift. Her manager, Mr. Davenport, a man who looked like he'd been born in a starched tuxedo, was already gliding toward the source of the disturbance. The man who had entered was a tempest. He was tall, dressed in a bespoke suit of charcoal grey, so dark it was nearly black, but his silver blue eyes were wild. His dark hair was impeccably cut, but looked as though he'd been dragging his hands through it. He wasn't shouting, not yet. He was speaking, fast and low, in German. "Sir," Davenport said, his voice dripping with condescension, "this is a private establishment. I must ask you to lower your voice." The man ignored him, his eyes scanning the room as if looking for an escape route or a threat. He raked a hand through his hair again and spoke, louder this time, a sharp, guttural burst of German. "Security, Mr. Davenport," whispered another waiter, slithering up. "He's probably just drunk," a wealthy patron at Table 4 muttered, loud enough to be heard. "Eurotrash." Elise just stood, frozen by the espresso machine. The patrons, the other staff, Mr. Davenport. They all heard noise. They heard anger. They heard a foreign, aggressive language they associated with old war movies and villains. Elise Hayes heard words. She hadn't spoken German, truly spoken it, in 8 years. Not since her mother, Annalisa, had been buried. It was the language of lullabies and nightmares, of whispered secrets, and a past she had locked away. She was Ella now, an American waitress drowning in student debt, a ghost in a high-end restaurant. The man stepped forward, bumping into a reservation podium. He was agitated, sweating. He wasn't drunk. He was terrified. "Ist hinter mir," the man seethed, his voice cracking. "Der schwarze Turm. Sie müssen mir helfen." Mr. Davenport, now red-faced, put a hand on the man's chest. "Sir, I am warning you. Speak English or I will have you removed." "No," Elise said. It was a whisper. "What did you say, Hayes?" Davenport snapped, not looking away from the intruder. The man's eyes, those desperate, piercing blue eyes, finally landed on Elise. He saw her, just a girl in a black uniform, clutching a dirty napkin. And Elise did the thing she promised herself she would never do again. She let her mother's voice come out of her mouth. "Was ist passiert?" she asked, her voice clear and carrying across the suddenly silent dining room. "Wer ist hinter Ihnen?" The man stopped. The world stopped. Every eye in Aurelia, the patrons, the staff, Mr. Davenport, and the wild-eyed German, snapped to her. He stared at her, his chest heaving. The wildness in his eyes focused, sharpened, and turned to sheer, unadulterated shock. He hadn't just been heard. He had been understood. "Sei," he breathed. "Sie verstehen mich." You understand me?" "Ja," Elise replied, her hands trembling. "Ich verstehe." "Yes, I understand." Mr. Davenport turned, his face a mask of purple fury. "Miss Hayes!" What in God's name do you think you are doing? You are fired. Get out!" The German man ignored Davenport. He took one step toward Elise, his gaze intense, assessing. He had said, "He is behind me. The Black Rook. You have to help me." Who was the Black Rook? Before Elise could be dragged out, the man held up one hand. The authority in the gesture was so absolute, even Davenport paused. The wildness was gone. In its place was an Arctic cold. He straightened his suit, smoothed his hair, and in a voice that was perfectly calm, with an accent that was both beautiful and terrifying, he spoke. In perfect clipped English, "You will not fire her," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You will, in fact, apologize to her." Davenport spluttered. "Sir, I don't know who you think you are." "I am Maximilian von Hesse," the man said, as if stating a fact from an encyclopedia. "CEO of Hesse Global. And this entire building," he jested, "is a line item on one of my lesser spreadsheets. Now, apologize to the young lady. She was the only person in this entire room with the intelligence to de-escalate a situation. You," he sneered at Davenport, "are a frightened little man in a cheap suit." The name dropped like a bomb. Maximilian von Hesse, the reclusive, colossally wealthy German billionaire. He wasn't supposed to be in New York. He wasn't supposed to be in restaurants. Davenport turned white. Maximilian turned back to Elise. His blue eyes were no longer panicked. They were calculating. "You," he said, switching back to German. "You have 5 minutes to get your things. You work for me now." He didn't wait for an answer. He strode to a table, pulled out a chair, and sat down, ignoring the stunned couple already seated there. "I will have a water. And she," he pointed at Elise, "will have whatever she wants." Elise stood, shaking, in the center of a room that had just tilted off its axis. Fired and hired in the span of 30 seconds by a man who was either a genius, a madman, or both. And he was waiting for her. The employee locker room at Aurelia was a cramped, windowless box that smelled of bleach and old shoes. Elise's hands were shaking so badly she could barely unbutton her uniform. "What in the hell was that, Ella?" her friend, Sarah, hissed from the next locker. "Davenport's having an aneurysm. And Maximilian von Hesse, the guy who basically owns the entire European tech market." "What did you do?" I spoke German," Elise whispered, pulling her worn T-shirt over her head. It felt like a confession. "Yeah, we all heard that part. It was like something out of a movie. 1 minute he's a psycho, the next you're his new best friend." Elise grabbed her backpack, which contained her life, a well-worn copy of Rilke's Duino Elegies, half a protein bar, and a stack of overdue bills. "He offered me a job." "He demanded you," Sarah corrected. "There's a black Maybach at the curb that looks like it belongs to Batman. He's waiting for you." Elise took a deep breath. This was insane. She was a waitress. She was qualified to carry 8 plates, to memorize 16 wine pairings, and to smile while being treated like furniture. She was not qualified for whatever this was. But as she walked out of the locker room, Mr. Davenport blocked her path. His face was a sickly pale. "Miss Hayes, Elise," he said, his voice strained. Misunderstanding. We value you here. Mr. von Hesse is eccentric. We can forget this whole thing." "You fired me," Elise said, her voice quiet. A heat of the moment. A poor choice of words. Elise looked at the man who, just last week, had docked her pay for being 3 minutes late because the subway stalled. She looked at the man who made her cry in the walk-in cooler over a broken wine glass. "Goodbye, Mr. Davenport," she said. She walked out the front door of Aurelia for the last time. The Maybach was there, just as Sarah had said. It was less a car and more a piece of polished obsidian. The driver, a mountain of a man in a dark suit, opened the rear door without a word. She slid in. The interior smelled of rich leather and ozone. Maximilian von Hesse was sitting opposite her. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at a tablet, his brow furrowed. The panic from the restaurant was gone, replaced by an unnerving, pressurized calm. The car pulled silently into traffic. "Where are we going?" Elise asked, her voice small. "To my office," he said, not looking up. "First, the terms. You will be my personal interpreter and liaison. Your salary is $500,000 a year, effective immediately." Elise stopped breathing. That was a typo. It had to be. It was more money than she had ever imagined seeing in one place. Mr. von Hesse. I'm a waitress." He finally looked up. Those blue eyes pinned her to the leather seat. "You are not a waitress," he said in German, the language suddenly intimate in the small space. "You are the first person in 6 months who has not lied to me." "Lied to you? I just met you." "Everyone in my life, Miss Hayes," he switched back to English, "is paid to agree with me, or they are paid by my enemies to undermine me. You were paid to serve me a $300 steak, and instead you stopped me from making a fool of myself. That makes you unique." "What about the Black Rook?" she asked, bold. "What about he's behind me? You were terrified." His face hardened. "The Black Rook is a business complication, and I was not terrified. I was inconvenienced." It was a blatant lie. But Elise knew a defensive posture when she saw one. She'd waited on enough Wall Street titans, celebrating victories and mourning losses. "Why me?" she insisted. "You could hire the best interpreters from the UN." "I could," he agreed. "And they would be reporting my every word to whoever paid them most. The Kriegers, the media, the SEC. You, Miss Hayes, have no connections. You have no allegiances. You are, if my 30-second background check is correct, in $80,000 of student loan debt. Your closest living relative is a third cousin in Ohio, and you are about to be evicted." Elise flushed, a hot, angry shame. "You ran a background check on me? In the restaurant?" "My security head, Michael, is very efficient," Maximilian said dismissively. "You are in debt. You are alone. You are intelligent. And you speak German like a native. You are, in short, perfect. You are a blank slate." "And what if I say no?" Maximilian von Hesse smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a predator that had just cornered its prey. "Then I will have this car stop, and you can return to Mr. Davenport and beg for your job. He will, I assure you, not give it back. You will be on the street by morning, and the $500,000 offer will evaporate." He leaned in, and the car suddenly felt very, very small. "But you won't say no," he whispered, switching back to German, "because you are not a blank slate. I saw your eyes when you heard me. You recognized the fear. You've been scared like that before." He was right, and that, more than anything, terrified her. "So, Elise Hayes," he said, his English returning, "do we have an arrangement? You will be my voice, my shadow, and my secret. In return, I will make you rich. And perhaps," his eyes glittered, "I will keep you safe." "Safe from what?" "From everything," he said, turning back to his tablet. "And everyone." The car descended into an underground garage, the steel doors closing behind them with the finality of a tomb. Elise realized she hadn't agreed. He had simply informed her of the facts. She had just sold her voice, and maybe her life, to a man she didn't know. all for a language she had tried to forget. Maximilian's office was the entire penthouse floor of the von Hesse Tower, a black glass spire that pierced the Manhattan skyline. It was less an office and more a minimalist fortress. Glass walls overlooked the city, but the glass, Elise suspected, was inches thick. The man who had opened her car door, Mikkel, shadowed them. He was tall, with pale Scandinavian features and eyes so light they looked empty. He was Maximilian's head of security, and he moved with a silent, deadly grace. He looked at Elise not as a person, but as a variable, an unsecured asset. "Mikhail, get me the Krieger file, the private one," Maximilian ordered, as he shrugged off his suit jacket, revealing perfectly tailored suspenders. "And get Miss Hayes a coffee, and a new phone, and a contract." Elise was left standing in the middle of a room that was larger than her entire apartment building. A single, massive, abstract painting hung on one wall. "You don't just speak German," Maximilian said, suddenly from across the room. He was pouring himself a whiskey. "You speak Berliner Deutsch. You have the accent. A working-class Berlin accent, to be precise. Where did a waitress from New York learn that?" Elise's hands fisted at her sides. "My mother. Your mother, Annalise Hayes, died 8 years ago. Car accident, Brooklyn." He was reciting facts from his background check. "Don't!" Elise's voice was sharp. "Don't talk about her!" Maximilian stopped, the whiskey bottle in his hand. He looked at her, truly looked at her. "Ah, a nerve. Good, it means you're human." He sat on a low, leather sofa. "My turn, Miss Hayes. Honesty. You want to know what this is about? It's about a family. The Krieger family. They are old wolves. My father, Heinrich von Hesse, built our company on sustainable technology. The Kriegers build their empire on oil and blood. For generations they have wanted what we have. And now they are trying to take it." "A hostile takeover," Elise said, remembering the term from her one failed business ethics class. "Worse," Maximilian scoffed. "A corporate war. They've been planting moles in my company, stealing data, threatening my board members. The Black Rook I mentioned? It's the code name for the mole at the center of it all. Someone very, very close to me. Someone in my inner circle." "So you started speaking German?" "Precisely. 3 months ago, I suspected my English-speaking executive team was compromised, so I switched all critical communications to German. My private calls, my meetings. I trusted that no one, especially in New York, would understand the nuance. I became the eccentric German billionaire. It was a trap, a filter. I was testing the walls. Today at the restaurant, I thought I was being followed. I thought the Black Rook had finally made their move. It was, he admitted, a moment of genuine panic. Until I answered you, Elise said. Until you answered me, he agreed. You broke my filter. Which means, Miss Hayes, you are either the most dangerous person in this city, or the most valuable. He needed her. He needed a secure line of communication. He needed someone who could sit in high-stakes meetings and listen, someone who could be his shadow, his ears, someone who could understand the German that was meant to be a secret. "And what about my mother?" Elise asked, her voice trembling. Why did her voice, my accent, why did that matter to you? Maximilian stared into his glass. My father, Heinrich. He was a brilliant man, but sentimental. He wasn't just a businessman. He was an academic first. He studied in Berlin in the late 1980s. He stood and walked to his desk. He picked up a framed black and white photograph. It was old. It showed a group of university students, laughing, books in their arms. My father, Maximilian said, pointing to a young man with a familiar, intense gaze. Elise's breath hitched. She walked closer. Her legs felt weak. Because standing next to the young Heinrich von Hesse, her arm linked through his, her smile radiant and bright, was a woman with Elise's eyes and a cloud of dark hair. That's Anneliese, Maximilian said softly. Anneliese Schmidt. Before she was Hayes. My father spoke of her often. He said she was the most brilliant mind of her generation. A physicist. They were colleagues. They were working on something together. Something he called the Eden Project. Elise's world tilted again. Her mother, who she remembered as a sad, quiet woman who worked 2 jobs and always smelled of laundry soap, had been a physicist, had known a billionaire. Her accident, Elise said, her voice numb. It was 8 years ago. She fell. That's what the police said. And you believed them? Maximilian's voice was gentle but sharp. Elise thought back. The sirens, the rain, the way the police officer had been so quick to close the case, the feeling she'd always had, a cold knot in her stomach, that something was wrong. My father died 6 months ago, Maximilian said, his voice hardening. The Kriegers have been circling ever since. They don't just want the company, Miss Hayes. They want the Eden Project. It's the core of my father's research, the true source of our technology. And I believe your mother was the co-creator. He turned to her, his face a mask of cold resolve. Your mother didn't just speak German, Elise. She was German. And I don't think her death was an accident. I think the Kriegers found her. And now they've found me. Elise looked at the photo, her mother smiling, the man who would become a billionaire. What you said in the restaurant, Elise whispered. You said, the Black Rook is behind me. Who is it? I don't know, Maximilian said. It could be my cousin, Julian, who sits on my board. It could be my own head of strategy. It could be... He glanced at the door where Michael had disappeared. Anyone. That is why you are here. We are going to find them. We are going to speak our secret language, you and I. And we are going to finish what our parents started. Elise Hayes, the waitress, was gone. In her place was Anneliese Schmidt's daughter. And she had just found a war she never knew. She was born to fight. The next 3 weeks were a blur of disorientation and luxury. Elise moved from her crumbling walk-up into a penthouse apartment 2 floors below Maximilian's, for security reasons. Her wardrobe of jeans and T-shirts was replaced by a collection of sleek, understatedly expensive clothes. Armani, Max Mara, Brunello Cucinelli, chosen by a stylist. You are my shadow, Maximilian had said. You must be able to blend in anywhere, from a boardroom to a black tie gala. But the core of her new life was language. She was his shadow. She sat in the corner of sterile boardrooms, a silent girl with a notepad, while Maximilian and his executive team, all C-suite, English-speaking Americans, discussed quarterly projections. Then, Maximilian would turn to her. Miss Hayes, my German colleagues need the notes on this. Would you be so kind as to translate the minutes? And in that moment, the power in the room would shift. He would look at her, and in rapid, complex German, he would give his real orders. The man on the left, Thomas, Maximilian would say in German, his face a mask of polite interest. He is lying about the shipping numbers. Watch his eyes. He is the Black Rook's puppet. Understood, Elise would reply, also in German, her pen never pausing. I will cross-reference the manifests from the Hamburg port. To the rest of the room, it was a simple translation. To them, it was the war room. They developed their own code within the language. The Eden Project became Der Garten, the garden. The Krieger family became Die Wolf, the wolves, and the Black Rook remained Der Schwarze Turm. The main suspect was Julian von Hesse, Maximilian's cousin. Julian was everything Maximilian was not: slick, charming, and openly ambitious. He ran the American branch of the company and made no secret of his belief that Maximilian, with his eccentric, German-only policies, was unfit to lead. "Julian is a peacock," Maximilian muttered to her during one such meeting, as Julian presented a flashy but hollow marketing proposal. "He's loud and vain. But is he a traitor?" "He's too obvious," Elise replied in German, under her breath. "The wolves would never use a peacock. They would use a snake. Someone who blends in." Her gaze drifted, as it often did, to Mikhail, the silent head of security. Mikhail, who stood by the door, unblinking. Mikhail, who had access to everything. Mikhail, who, Elise noted, never spoke. The work was grueling, but it was the quiet moments that were the most intense. Late at night, in his penthouse, they would work, digging through his father's old digital files, searching for the Eden Project. "My father encrypted everything," Maximilian said, rubbing his temples. "It's all tied to Berlin, to his university days." "With my mother," Elise said. She was no longer just a translator. She was a partner. "With your mother?" He pushed a laptop toward her. "It's all in 1980s German programming code. I can't make sense of it. It's a digital archive of his life." Elise's fingers flew over the keyboard. Her mother had taught her the basics of these old systems as a game. "It's not just code," she murmured. "It's a journal." She began to read, translating the German for him. It was Heinrich's digital heart, his frustration with his father, his love for his research, and page after page about Anneliese. "Anneliese solved the energy equation today," Elise read, her voice soft. "She sees the world in light. I only see it in numbers. She is the key. But she is afraid. Her family. They have connections I do not trust. She says we must hide the work." Maximilian was standing very close, listening to her voice. Elise could feel the warmth from his body, smell the faint scent of whiskey and clean cotton. "Keep reading," he urged. "We had a fight. I told her we could change the world. She told me the world would kill us for trying. She wants to run, to America, to hide, to be someone else. How can a mind like hers hide?" Elise's eyes burned. This was the mother she never knew, the woman who had given up her brilliance to become a waitress in Brooklyn, all to protect her. Or to protect Elise. "She wasn't just hiding the work," Elise whispered, a sudden, cold realization dawning. "She was hiding me." "What do you mean?" "The last entry," Elise said, her hands shaking, "the day before she left for America. I have to go. I cannot protect us both. I will hide my greatest creation. He will never find her." "He?" Maximilian asked. "Not Heinrich," Elise said. "Look at the original file date. It's marked. She's not talking about the Kriegers." "A new name, a new threat." "Elise," Maximilian said, his voice dropping. He placed a hand on her shoulder. The contact was electric, a jolt. "What aren't you telling me?" "My mother. She was married before, in Germany. A man she never spoke of. My father. My biological father. She told me he was dead. A climbing accident." "And you believed her?" he asked, echoing her own words back to her. Elise looked at the screen, at the words of a brilliant, terrified woman. "No, I don't think I ever did. The Black Rook, the Kriegers, and now a ghost from Berlin. The layers of the conspiracy were suffocating. "We need to go to Berlin," Maximilian said, his voice decisive. "The answers aren't here. They're in your mother's past, in our past." "Go to Berlin? In the middle of this?" The Kriegers are launching their official takeover bid at the annual gala in 2 weeks. Let them, Maximilian said, his eyes on hers. Let Julian play at being CEO. We will be hunting bigger game. Michael, he called. The security head appeared instantly. Sir, ready the jet. We're going to Berlin. Tonight. Just the 3 of us. Sir, Michael said, his voice a flat monotone. That is unwise. The Krieger family's home base is Berlin. It is the heart of their territory. It is also the heart of the mystery, Maximilian replied. We go. And you, Michael, he added, you will not let Miss Hayes out of your sight. Michael looked at Elise. His pale, empty eyes seemed, for a fraction of a second, to hold a flicker of something. Pity? Anger. As you command, sir, he said. She will be perfectly safe. Berlin in winter was grey, cold and haunted. It was Elise's first time in her mother's city, and it felt like returning to a memory she'd never had. The language was everywhere, not as a secret code, but as the fabric of life. For the first time, Elise didn't feel like an imposter. She felt home. They stayed at the Hotel Adlon, a bastion of old-world luxury. Maximilian, under the alias Mr. Richter, had booked a suite that overlooked the Brandenburg Gate. Michael, ever present, secured the floor. The university archives are closed to the public, Maximilian said, working from a laptop. But my father was a generous alumnus. They will make an exception for his son's historical researcher. He nodded at Elise. Me, Elise said. I'm the one going in? You're the only one who knows what to look for, Maximilian said. Annalisa Schmidt, the Eden Project, and the name of your biological father. You can't come? I'm the target. My face is too well known. I will be here, coordinating with my loyalists in New York. We move at night. He looked at Michael. You will go with her. You are her shadow. The Humboldt University archives were cold. The air smelled of old paper and dust. An elderly archivist, her glasses perched on her nose, led Elise and Michael, who she assumed was Elise's assistant, to a series of grey metal shelves. Schmidt, Annalisa, the archivist muttered. Ja, a tragic story. Brilliant. Burned too bright. She handed Elise a single thin box, her student files, and her resignation. Very sudden. Elise sat at a heavy wooden table. Michael stood by the door, impassive. She opened the box. It was her mother's life, grades, citations, accolades. And then, at the bottom, a folded piece of paper. Not a resignation. A note, scribbled in German. Lucas, I cannot. He is a monster. He will use the work for violence. I am taking it. I am taking her. Do not follow me. Forget me. Ah. Lucas, Elise whispered. She looked through the rest of the file. There was a photo, a grainy, black and white class photo of a physics tutorial. There was her mother. There was Heinrich von Hesse. And standing next to her mother, his arm possessively around her waist, was a young man with dark, brooding eyes. His name was on the caption, Lucas Weber. Michael, Elise said, her voice shaking, I need you to see this. Michael didn't move. My job is to watch the door, Miss Hayes. No, Elise said, standing. Your job is to protect Maximilian. And this is the threat. Look. She held the photo out. Michael, with a sigh, walked over. He glanced at the photo. A student, he said, bored. Look at him, Elise insisted. Lucas Weber, the man my mother called a monster. The man she ran from. Michael's eyes scanned the face. He showed no reaction. But Elise, who had been trained by Maximilian to watch for the smallest tells, saw it. A flare of the nostril, a tightening in the jaw. He looks like no one, Michael said. He looks, Elise said slowly, A little bit. Like you. Mikhail's head snapped up. His pale, empty eyes were suddenly full. They were full of a raging, icy fire. "You should be more careful, Miss Hayes," he said, his voice a low growl. The perfect, flat American accent he always used was gone. It was replaced by a thick, unmistakable Berlin accent, the same accent as hers. "It was you," Elise breathed, backing away. "It was always you." "The Black Rook," Mikhail, or Lucas, said. He smiled, a terrible thin-lipped expression. "A clever name, don't you think? A rook, a term, a tower, like the von Hesse Tower, or a castle. In chess, it protects the king, but it can also deliver the checkmate. You're Lucas Weber?" Lucas Weber was a weak, idealistic student who lost the love of his life to a rich boy and a bad idea. He spat. "I am Mikhail, and I have been in the employ of Sabine Krieger for 10 years. "Sabine Krieger, the matron," Elise whispered. Maximilian had called her the old wolf. "She found me, after Anneliese. Left. She saw my talent, my anger. She funded my education, my training. She placed me with Maximilian's father, the perfect mole. I have been playing the long game. Waiting. Waiting for what? To destroy Maximilian? To reclaim what is mine?" he roared, the sound echoing in the silent archive. "The Eden Project. It was my work, too. Anneliese's and mine. Heinrich von Hesse, with his money and his family, he stole her. He stole her mind, and he stole my work. And me," Elise said, the final piece clicking into place. "She wasn't just running from you. She was running with me. You're my father." Lucas's face contorted. "No, that is the one lie Sabine told, the one I could never prove. Anneliese, she was pregnant. But she said it was Heinrich's." "You're lying." "Am I?" he sneered. "Why did she run to America? Why did Heinrich's father send her money, anonymously, for years? Why do you think Maximilian was so interested in you, the girl who speaks German? He wasn't looking for a translator. He was looking for his sister." Elise's world dissolved. Half-sister. Maximilian. Her mother. Heinrich. It was a lie. It had to be. "And now," Lucas said, his voice cold again, "the plan has changed. Sabine Krieger wants the Eden Project. I just want revenge, and you, Fräulein, are the key to both." He grabbed her arm. His grip was steel. "Maximilian has been monitoring us," Elise said, trying to stall. "He has your location. He'll know." "Oh, I know." Lucas smiled. He pulled out a small device and clicked it. "The audio feed is now off, and I have just sent him a text message from your phone, which I cloned in New York." He showed her the screen. It was a message to Maximilian. "He's the one. Lucas Weber. He's my father. He's the Black Rook. He's trying to kill me. Archive. Now." "He will come," Lucas said, dragging her toward the exit. "He will come alone, and he will walk right into a trap. And the Kriegers will have both of you, the last 2 pieces of the von Hesse puzzle." Elise screamed, but Lucas clamped a hand over her mouth. He was too strong. "Do not fight," he whispered in her ear, his German a perfect dark mirror of her own. "It is over. The game is finished. The Black Rook has won." The trap was set, but Lucas Weber had made one critical, arrogant mistake. He had underestimated Maximilian von Hesse, and he had underestimated the bond forged in their secret language. When Maximilian received the text, he didn't panic. He didn't race to the archives. He froze. He read the words. "He's the one. Lucas Weber. He's my father. He's trying to kill me. Archive, now." It was perfect. It was dramatic. It was everything Elise would say, except for one word. Now. In all their time together, in their coded language, the word now had a specific meaning. It was a distress signal, but it was also a confirmation. Jetzt. The time is now. It was the trigger word they had established for the Eden Project files. It was a signal of activation, but Elise hadn't texted jetzt. She had texted now. It was a subtle, almost meaningless distinction. But Maximilian, who had built an empire on nuance, knew. Elise wouldn't use the English word. She would have used the German. It was a warning. The text was a lie. He didn't call the police. He didn't call his security. He made one call, to the one person in his organization he still trusted. "Julian," he said, when his cousin picked up. "The peacock. You're a peacock, right?" "Maximilian, what the hell? I'm in New York, trying to save this company while you're off on some jaunt." "The Krieger Gala," Maximilian said, his voice ice. "It's tonight, in New York. You're supposed to be there, aren't you? Representing me?" "Yes, to be humiliated." "No," Maximilian said. "You're going to be my Trojan horse. The Black Rook is here, in Berlin. I've been played, which means Elise has been taken. And the gala. The gala is the final move." He was right. Lucas wasn't taking Elise to a Krieger safe house in Berlin. The private jet was already waiting. He was taking her back to New York. "What are you in, Fräulein?" Lucas sneered, pushing her into the jet. Her hands were bound. "You're making a mistake. He knows. He'll stop you." "He knows nothing," Lucas spat. "He is a sentimental boy, just like his father. He thinks you're his long-lost sister. He will do anything to save you. And Sabine Krieger is waiting." The plan was simple. The annual Hesse Global Gala, held at the New York Public Library, was the centerpiece of the Kriegers' hostile takeover. While Maximilian was in hiding, Julian would be forced to announce the company's instability. Sabine Krieger would then, as a major shareholder, step in, call for a vote of no confidence, and seize control. But now she had a new, better prize. "You," Lucas said, as the jet hurtled over the Atlantic, "will be the star of the show. Sabine will present you, the true heir to the Eden Project, Annaliese's daughter, and you will unlock your mother's work for us. Or you will watch as we dismantle everything Maximilian holds dear, starting with his reputation." Elise's mind was racing. She was not a physicist. She was not a spy. She was a waitress. And what did waitresses do? They listened, they observed, and they anticipated. When they landed in New York, they didn't go through customs. A black van was waiting on the tarmac. Lucas, his Michael persona back in place, was now just a driver. They pulled up to the service entrance of the library. The gala was in full swing. Music, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses drifted from the main hall. Lucas shoved her into a dark, cold storage room. "Sabine will be here in a moment," he said. "Do not be foolish." He left, locking the door. Elise's heart was a trapped bird. She looked around. Crates, cleaning supplies, a single high window. She was tied. But Lucas had forgotten one more thing about her. She was Annalisa Schmidt's daughter. She didn't know physics, but she knew language. And she knew her mother. Her mother, who had taught her games. Her mother, who had taught her how to hide. The knots, they were professional, but the ropes were nylon. She saw a broken metal shelf in the corner, a sharp edge. It would take time, but in the main hall, Sabine Krieger, a woman with iron-grey hair and the eyes of a wolf, was at the podium. And in this time of instability, she was saying, her German accent thick and imperious, Hesse Global needs a steady hand, not an absent boy king. Julian, standing to the side, looked sick. "Where is he?" A voice boomed. The great doors of the hall burst open. Maximilian von Hesse strode in. He was not wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing the same suit he'd been in for 24 hours. His face was thunder. "Sabine," he said, his voice deathly calm, "you have something that belongs to me." Sabine smiled. "Maximilian, how good of you to join us. Yes, I believe I do. A little stray. A piece of your father's past. Where is she?" "Lucas!" Sabine called. Lucas, in his full Mikhail security uniform, stepped from the shadows. The crowd gasped. "He has been my most loyal soldier," Sabine preened. "He has brought me the key to the Eden Project. He has brought me Annalisa Schmidt's girl." "And her father," Lucas said, his voice full of venom. He looked at Maximilian. "Hello, brother." The room exploded. This was the twist, the great betrayal. "Brother?" Maximilian was stunned. The one thing he hadn't seen, the lie Lucas had told Elise. It was the truth, his father, and Annalise. "No," a voice said, breathless. All eyes turned. Elise Hayes was standing in the doorway. Her dress was torn, her wrists were raw and bloody. "He's not your brother," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "He's not Heinrich's son." She was looking at Lucas. "He's my brother." Lucas froze. "What?" Not half, brother," Elise said, tears streaming down her face. "My mother, Annalisa. When she was in university, she had a child, before Heinrich, before my American father, a boy." She was looking at the note she'd found, the one she'd stuffed in her pocket. "Lucas, I cannot. He is a monster. He will use the work for violence. I am taking it. I am taking her." "She wasn't writing to Lucas," Elise cried. "She was writing about him, her husband, Lucas Weber, the man she ran from, the man she called a monster. My father." She pointed a trembling finger at the man she had known as Mikhail. "You," she whispered. "You are not Lucas Weber. You are my mother's first child, the one she gave up, the one she was writing to. Your name is Lucas. She named you. And our father, he took you. He raised you. He twisted you into this, a weapon, against her." Lucas's face, the hard mask of Mikhail, the face of the Black Rook, crumbled. He looked at Sabine, who was pale with rage. "She's lying," Sabine shrieked. "Am I?" Elise said. "In the archive, I saw the photo. Lucas Weber, my father. He didn't look like you. He looked like me." "No," Lucas whispered. He was looking at his hands. "She was protecting me," Elise said, her voice raw. "She was writing to you, her son, the son she lost. She was trying to warn you. He, our father. He's the one who was working with the Kriegers. He's the one who hunted her. He's the one who killed her." It was a guess, a desperate, wild leap. But it was true. Lucas looked at Sabine, the woman who had found him, the woman who had told him Heinrich von Hesse had stolen his mother. "You," Lucas whispered, his voice broken. "You worked with him. My father. You used me. You used me to destroy my own family." "He was a volatile asset," Sabine snapped. "He failed. You were the better tool." In that moment, Lucas Weber, the man known as Mikhail, the Black Rook, made his final move. But it wasn't at Maximilian. He lunged, not at Sabine, at the security guards who were now rushing toward Maximilian. He was no longer a mole. He was no longer a brother. He was a bodyguard. "Go!" he roared at Maximilian. "Get her out! Jetzt! Go! Now!" Maximilian didn't hesitate. He grabbed Elisa's hand, and as the gala dissolved into chaos, Lucas fighting his own security team, Sabine Krieger screaming for order, they ran. They ran, together, out of the darkness and into the New York night. The war was over, but the victory was silent. In the chaos of the gala, Lucas, the real Lucas, Elise's brother, had created a diversion. He was apprehended, but not before he pressed a data key into Maximilian's hand. Everything, he'd whispered. All of Sabine's records, her connection to our father, her accident, avenge our mother. And they did. The data key was a treasure trove. It contained decades of Sabine Krieger's crimes, including the explicit order to silence Anneliese Schmidt 8 years prior. The hostile takeover evaporated. The Krieger empire, built on oil and secrets, crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. Sabine Krieger was arrested. The story of the billionaire and the waitress was a media sensation, but the truth remained their own. Elise and Maximilian sat in his penthouse, the city lights twinkling below. The silence was heavy. "He's pleaded guilty," Elise said, reading a message on her new, secure phone. "Lucas. He took a deal. Accessory. He testified against our father." Lucas Weber, the man who had haunted their lives, had been arrested in a small town in Argentina. "He'll serve 20 years, Maximilian said. "He's my brother," Elise said softly. "He was a victim, too." "I know." Maximilian stood and walked to the window. "He's not the only one." He turned to her. The case was closed, the company was safe, but the space between them was charged. "The lie," he said. "The one he told you, that I was your brother." "I knew it wasn't true," Elise said, standing. "How?" "Because," she said, her voice low, "I don't look at my brother the way I look at you." He crossed the room in 2 strides. He stopped just inches from her. He was back to speaking German, their language, the one that was theirs alone. "Und wie siehst du mich an? And how do you look at me?" "Wie ein Mann, den ich nicht verlieren will," Elise replied, not breaking his gaze. "Like a man I don't want to lose." He finally kissed her. It was not the kiss of a billionaire or a boss. It was the kiss of a man who had been holding his breath for a lifetime. When they broke apart, Elise was smiling. "So, what now, boss?" "I am not your boss, Elise," he said, "and you are not my translator." He led her to his desk, the one where his father's picture used to be. He tapped his keyboard. The screen lit up. "My father's journal," he said. "The Eden Project. I couldn't unlock the final file. It wasn't encrypted by him." "It was encrypted by her," Elise breathed. She sat down. It was a simple password prompt. "What is your greatest creation?" Lucas had thought it was the Eden Project. Sabine had thought it was the tech. Elise's fingers typed 2 words. Elise. Lucas. The file opened. It wasn't physics. It wasn't a formula for sustainable energy. It was a lifetime of research, patents, and data, all legally bound in a digital trust. It was her mother's last will and testament. "She left it all," Elise whispered, tears blurring her vision. "The original patents, the core technology. She left it to us, to her children." 50-50. Maximilian started to laugh, a full, genuine laugh that echoed in the quiet room. "What?" Elise asked. "Your mother, Anneliese," he said, shaking his head. "She didn't just run. She didn't just hide. She planted a bomb, a legal bomb. She knew, one day, the Kriegers or my father or someone would come for the technology, and she made it impossible for them." He looked at her, his blue eyes bright with admiration. "The core of Hesse Global, the technology my father built his empire on. He didn't own it. He was its guardian. Your mother, she owned it. And now," he smiled, "you do. You and your brother. You, Elise Hayes, are not my employee. You are my new business partner. You own half of my company." Elise looked at the screen, at her mother's name, at her own. The waitress who was drowning in debt. The woman who had been a ghost. "The Eden Project," Maximilian said, taking her hand. "It was never about energy. It was about legacy. It was about family. What our parents started. It's time for us to finish it." Elise looked out at the city, her city. She was no longer a shadow. She was no longer a blank slate. She was Elise Hayes Schmidt. And she had found her voice. She had found her family. And she had found the one man in the world who understood her in every language. The story isn't over. In fact, for Elise and Maximilian, it's just beginning. They proved that the past never stays buried, and sometimes the secrets we keep are the ones that set us free. What started as a misunderstanding in a restaurant ended with a new empire, and a love that was a language all its own. What did you think of Elise's story? Did you guess the final twist about her brother? Let me know in the comments what your favorite part of this drama was. If you loved this story and want to hear more dramas full of twists, karma, and hidden secrets, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update, and share this with someone who loves a story where the underdog finally